For example, if China, the 21st century's rising power, somehow decides that it's going to come to the Pacific coast of North America, from Seattle to San Diego, and start snatching the computer engineers and the architects and the professors and dragging them across the Pacific to be enslaved. Because in many ways, that's what happened with the African slave trade. That is to say, the enslavers oftentimes very carefully picked out those who, for example, had knowledge of rice growing, those, for example, who had knowledge in terms of blacksmithing, and then dragged them across the Atlantic to toil for free. I dare say that if somehow, and I doubt if this is going to happen, quite frankly, but somehow if you use your imagination, if China were to engage in what the European settlers engaged in North America, I doubt if there would be a kind of rationalization or justification of that in order to build the greater glory of China.
And getting back to the Native American role in slavery, you write that roughly 2 to 4 million Native Americans also were enslaved from the advent of Columbus to the end of the 19th century. It's possible that 5 million indigenous Americans were enslaved. This form of slavery coexisted roughly with enslavement of Africans, leading to a catastrophic decline in the population of indigenous. To you, what explains why the indigenous role in slavery, a catastrophic impact, seems so often erased from history? And how much do we not realize the impact of slavery because, or the role that it played in the growth of the United States, the British Empire, or even capitalism, because that indigenous slavery is erased, even to the point of, as you were just pointing out, that the British were exporting indigenous Americans around the world as slaves. Do we not understand the importance of the role of slavery in the growth of the United States and the growth of capitalism because we simply erase the indigenous role from history?
Well, I think that's part of it, and I think part of it is the kind of blindness in the United States because many who reside here consider themselves to be patriots, and that leads to step number one, downplaying the tragedy that befell others as the moment arrived to build this country. And then number two, I think that affects historians who oftentimes make a choice that they'll downplay the question of indigenous slavery as they tell this uplifting story about the building of the United States of America. It's only in recent years that you've begun to see Native American historians begin to tackle the fraught and complex history of North America, begin to tell their own story. And likewise, it's only in recent decades that you've begun to see historians of African descent begin to do the same thing. Keep in mind that during the era of Jim Crow, which lasted roughly until the mid to late 1960s, that only historians who were defined as white were oftentimes allowed to visit archives where the secrets were kept, and oftentimes buried. So therefore, it would be very difficult for Native American historians, white historians, to tell that story. And sadly enough, many historians defined as white did not consider this story to be sufficiently important, which of course then leads to an explosion in the 1960s by angry black students at Northwestern University of Chicago who demand black studies department were hiring as black professors, etc. And then a cheerful historian, so-called white historians, then wondering why all of this rage is taking place.
How much do you think we realize slavery's global impact, how it was a unique and unprecedented era in human history that had devastating effects, still felt to this day, and likely for centuries into the future? To what degree do you think the general public understands the impact of 4 centuries of African and indigenous slavery on the economic and political development of not only the West and the United States, but the world?
Well, I don't think it's very well understood. Point number one, I think oftentimes there's a misunderstanding because we know, and anthropologists have told us, that there is a kind of slavery that exists between the first form of human organization, speaking of what is called primitive communalism, and the third form, that is to say feudalism. The difficulty is that this new form of slavery that arrived post-1490